Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. This is BPD Woman. I am Jen, and on this channel I talk about my experiences in managing, dealing with, and trying to become more effective with my borderline personality disorder. Again, thank you for tuning in. There's a couple of new subscribers, so thank you so much, and thank you also for the comments. They're so great to see, and they're super helpful. And they remind me of things and teach me things that I wouldn't have necessarily thought of. So thank you so much. And I also wanted to, I thought of something this morning. Yesterday I did a video talking about the opposite action skill, and Rob also commented on checking the facts. That's another great, awesome skill that we can talk about, especially when it comes to catastrophizing and getting a read on a situation that may be incorrect. And I wanted to mention that, this morning I was thinking about these skills, and often for me, for quite a while, I used to think that if I don't receive the outcome that I wanted with one of the skills that I used, like if I did a repair but that person didn't want to be friends with me, or if I used opposite action but I didn't get the result that I wanted, that it's important to remember that you may be 100% effective in using these skills and 100% on point, doing everything that you need to do, and that other person may not respond how you want. And that's okay. I think for me, I thought this skill is not effective if I don't get the response or outcome that I want. And that's just not correct. You may be actually at an advantage with some of these interpersonal skills that you learn along the way than a lot of other people are. Just because other people don't have BPD or another personality disorder doesn't mean that they're kings and queens of the communication world, right? And that just because we've been effective doesn't mean that they're going to be responsive, and that's okay. So it's just important to remember that it's still a success if you are feeling good about yourself afterwards. One thing that one of my DBT therapists said to me once was, I really wanted to get revenge on someone. And she said, well, I just wonder how that's going to make you feel at the end of you doing that. I just really worry how that's going to make you feel about yourself if you carry out with this plan for revenge. And she's absolutely correct. How I felt ultimately impacted my mood, my feelings of success and mastery. So again, if you act within your ethics and your morals, then in my humble opinion, you've 100% mastered. So today, that was just to piggyback on talking about some of the skills, and I'm gonna upload a few videos today because I have a pretty hefty work week ahead of me. So I wanted to put a few out here, let them percolate, and then I'll check in when I can. Today's video I want to talk about is something that I think a lot of people stress about and have a hard time dealing with, and that is what to do, how to manage when you are alone for the holidays. No, this for me has been a particularly difficult thing to handle over the years. It's definitely gotten easier. And so I'll talk a little bit about my history with birthdays and holidays and everything that comes with that, the emotional narrative or baggage, as you want to call it. And then I'll talk about some skills in handling being alone, feeling alone. I'll offer some suggestions about ways to manage that. So first, let's all agree that the holidays can be both exciting and wonderful and also very stressful. You know, there's so many articles out there. And, you know, one that really stuck with me once was, you know, people who are surrounded by 20 other people on the holidays don't necessarily feel more, sorry, that's my dog chewing her bone. They don't necessarily feel more connected or fulfilled, even though they're in a room full of 19 other people. So just because there's quantity, it doesn't always mean there's quality. And just because you're alone doesn't mean that you can't enjoy the holiday in a different kind of way. And, you know, this year obviously is particularly more stressful because of COVID-19. And so a lot of people who normally would have big gatherings aren't. You know, people that would go and see their elderly relatives aren't, because, you know, I mean, I at least know in one of my friend's cases, her grandmother, they were all planning to go see their grandmother who's quite old, and she was like, I really don't want a bunch of people in the house right now. So even aside from the pandemic, people have spent holidays alone and dealt with the feelings and the situations that come along with that. And I think it's also important to remember, I know I need remembering that and reminding that just because you're alone, it doesn't mean that it's because of your BPD or whatever it may be. There are plenty of other people out there that are single, or away from their families, or they're deployed, or, you know, their job takes them into a part of the world where they can't easily get back to their family, or they're just simply, they don't have a family. So let me talk a little bit about my history with birthdays and holidays and things like that, so you can get an idea and perhaps get some strength with knowing that you're not alone. And I'd love to hear your stories. Please, again, like, subscribe, share, comment. You know, it would be helpful to, you know, in the comments below, tell me about times that you have felt alone or sad during the holidays, or happy, and how you managed that and what you did as an alternative. So I'm an only child. My parents divorced when when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and then both my parents went on to subsequent marriages. So between my two parents, of whom I am both estranged, there are about 7 marriages, something like that. So my mother comes from a very large family. She's one of 9 children. I'm the first of, I don't know, probably at this point, 30 grandchildren. So it is a huge family. They live out of state. I don't live in the same state that they do. So growing up, there was always, of course, a custody share, right? And along with those custody shares of being, you know, with maybe this parent on this holiday and this parent on another holiday, or, you know, spending the morning with this parent on Christmas and then Christmas evening with another parent, there was always a sense for me of guilt, and like I was abandoning the other parent. There were a lot of tears. You know, my mother certainly didn't make it easy for me. You know, there was guilt trips. You know, she would be very emotional. Later, I found out she also had BPD. And then there was also the competition between parents of gifts, right? So one would buy me a scooter, one would buy me a bike. One would buy me a Fisher-Price camera, one would buy me a Polaroid camera. So for me, gifts sometimes didn't even seem very pleasurable, because if I was enjoying one, I was upsetting the other parent. And this continued on well into my teens. And as a result, the holidays always brought a lot of sadness and stress to me. When I became a young adult in my early 20s, my birthdays and things like that, they made me really want to just cry, be alone, be self-destructive, you know, maybe like someone at work was planning a cake celebration for me and I'd be like, oh, I don't want it, you know, forget it, cancel it. So there was this aura of me trying to be, come on, get down, self-destructive when it came time for these holidays. Yes, you're a cute dog, just stay down there. So, then, obviously, as I got a little bit older, at one point I was married, you know, and I was like, okay, now I'm gonna have the perfect holiday. We're gonna get the tree and we're gonna do the decorations. And, you know, we didn't have kids, but we were like, all right, we're gonna go look at Christmas lights in the park. We are gonna go do this. We're gonna have a big Christmas party. I'm gonna have 30 people over for my birthday. And, sure, like at times that was really fun, but sometimes, often more than not, there was an undercurrent of anxiety and sadness that came along with those. At one point on one Christmas, I felt like I was being choked. I felt like I couldn't catch my breath. I felt really uneasy. Later, I learned what I was having was a panic attack. So, even into my 30s, when I was like, all right, I'm gonna have a big birthday party. I'm gonna have all these people over. It's gonna be great. And again, I would be surrounded with like 10, 15 people and I would still feel really sad. And, you know, I started to talk to people about this and they were like, you know, you don't have to have these big celebrations to celebrate. You can, instead of celebrating with 10 or 15 people that maybe you don't know that well, you could celebrate with, say, 1 or 2 people that you're really close with, and you don't have a more intimate celebration. And I've been doing that for probably the last 5-10 years now. Yeah, probably. At least the last 5 years. So that's a little bit of history about what I used to do. Now, as I mentioned, I'm estranged from my parents for good reasons, and I'm single. I'm not married. I don't have a boyfriend right now, and so for me, there is always this. What's the word? You know, as September, October starts like coming up, I get, there's definitely a sense of stress that I start to feel like, oh gosh, like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be crying. You know, I've spent so many holidays crying. I don't want to be alone. What am I going to do? You know? And on most occasions over the last 5 years, things have worked out. I will generally find a friend or a coworker, when I used to have coworkers, who, you know, were maybe also spending it alone or wanted to spend it with me. Generally, I've spent my last probably 4 or 5 years of birthdays, Thanksgivings, and Christmases with just one other person. You know, obviously friends come and go. And so it's not always been the same people every year. In fact, generally it's not the same people every year. That's okay. I still have a really great time. And, you know, I don't know about you, but for me, it is hard for me to kind of like maintain some long-term friends. And I think there's a couple reasons for that, which can be discussed in a different video about, you know, am I making the right decisions when it comes to friends? And there's a couple of my previous videos about borderline and friendships that you may want to check out, where I talk about like, are losing friends my fault, or is it a combination of my fault and perhaps I'm not choosing the right folks to be friends with, the healthiest people. So a couple of years ago, there was a girl that I was friends with, and we had celebrated Thanksgiving together. It was great. She came from over to my house. I had a new puppy. It was wonderful. We also decided to spend Christmas together. So, you know, Christmas Eve, we were still texting, like, you know, what time she was going to come over, what she was going to bring. And everything was a hit. And then Christmas Day, I was like, great, like, what time are you coming over? Everything's ready. Didn't hear back. Didn't hear back. Didn't hear back. She stood me up on Christmas. So I could have, you know, stayed alone. I could have sulked. In fact, I was a little pissed. I was like, who the F like does that to someone on Christmas, right? So instead, like, I was working as a kind of ad hoc dog walker at that point. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna work. I'll make some money today. I'll come home. I'll spend it with my animals, right? Okay. So this past year, I spent birthday with a friend who, you know, she and I are kind of on the outs. That's okay. And now we're in October and Thanksgiving is coming up. And so I've become friends with another woman, and we've agreed that we're going to spend Thanksgiving together, and perhaps even Christmas. Now, I think as the years go on, I get a little less stressed about what I'm going to do during the holidays. Over the last 5-10 years, I can't remember one holiday where I've been truly alone, except for that one Christmas where I got stood up. You know, I've always been able to find someone that is willing to spend it with me, or at least, you know, maybe in the morning they might go visit with their family, but I'm like, hey, you want to come over for like silk pie and movies? We can watch Bad Santa like Christmas evening. Most people want to do that, you know. I mean, it's my experience that like most people aren't like super excited to spend the entire day with their family. They're generally like looking for something else to do that's fun afterwards. So it is, you know, managing the stress that comes with the holidays is difficult. It brings up a lot of past emotions, a lot of past experiences. And I have over the years transitioned from, I must have the cookie cutter Christmas, the traditional Thanksgiving, the traditional birthday celebration. I must have these in order to be happy. But you know what? They were never truly making me very happy. They were actually making me very sad. Now, I love Thanksgiving. That's probably my favorite holiday. I love cooking. I love, you know, being thankful. I think being thankful is a super important part of waking up every morning. And okay, so it looks like I've got my Thanksgiving plans all sorted out. Christmas, not sure yet. Maybe I'll spend it with my friend. Now, what if you don't have plans, right? Like, what if you don't have family? What if you're feeling alone? Here are some suggestions that I have. Excuse me. Okay, so number one, I have pets. I don't have, like I said, I'm an only child, so I don't have nieces or nephews to buy for. That doesn't really, I love buying gifts for kids though. So, what I've done is I have, you know, made a special holiday for me and my pets. So, right. And they go crazy. It's just like kids opening up gifts. They get super hype. I have, gifts ready. We do a celebration. They get a special meal. That's our little holiday thing. Another year, and especially this year when more people are suffering financially, a ex and I found a family that was in need of food, and we realized that they had small children, and so we decided that we would anonymously donate some gifts to them. And so what we did was, you know, we bought some cool gifts, which was fun in itself, like, you know, modeling clay and a doll, things like that. And, you know, left on the doorstep, rang the doorbell, ran back to our car, watched as they opened it up. And it was so fulfilling to watch, you know, someone be surprised like that. And, you know, doing things for others like that really makes me feel good inside. So that's another way. Obviously, a third thing to do to feel fulfilled and kind of get you out of feeling sad or alone for the holidays is to volunteer, you know, and it doesn't have to be the traditional volunteering either. You know, where I live in a big city, you know, probably by this point, like all of the Thanksgiving and Christmas volunteer opportunities are probably fulfilled by now. They get pretty booked. But there are lots, you know, just Google volunteer match, or, you know, look up volunteer opportunities in your area. You know, shelters, you know, serving food. I've done that. Yes, sweetie. Get down. She's a lover. Yes, she heard Christmas presents and now she's very excited. That's another idea. You know, if you don't have that kind of time, or if you don't have that opportunity available to you, get a trash bag, a pair of gloves, and go clean up a stream, go clean up a river. You know, I did that one year when a couple of a friend's kids were visiting me, and we were in a watershed along a really popular bike path. And when other people saw that we were picking up trash, they were like, oh my God, thank you for doing that. And they even contributed a little bit. So, you know, you can get people activated that way. A fourth idea is to create your own friendless or family-less event using Facebook or Nextdoor or Meetup or any of those social media platforms. Be like, hey, are you alone for the holidays? I'm alone for the holidays. You know, would you like to come over and watch Bad Santa, you know, in my TV lounge at my condo? Would you like to schedule a trip and go look at lights in, you know, the town center? You know, that's a really great opportunity. A fifth one that was really fulfilling for me one year was going to a senior citizen shelter or living facility. It's saddening to see how many people are alone for the holidays in those types of places. And so what I did was I took my 2 dogs and dressed them up in Christmas gear and bells and lights, and we visited people, and people were so happy to pet the dogs, and they were so happy to have someone else to talk to. And you know, they feel good, you feel good, everyone gets something out of it. A fifth way is to get down. Thank you. A fifth way is to work. You know, a lot of people are in jobs where, you know, they still work 24/7. Cops, firefighters, military, caregivers, nurses, things of that nature. And so, you know, perhaps if you know that you are going to be alone, but that someone else may want to spend time with their family, you know, cover their shift. Again, you know, everyone gets something out of it. You've done something nice for them. They get to spend time with their family, and you in turn make some money. A sixth way is to create your own special solo event. You know, remind yourself that it's just one day. You know, there's Thursday, Thanksgiving, and then there's the next day, and then it's over. There's Christmas Day, and then the next day, it's just another day. Remind yourself that it's just one day, and, you know, do something loving for yourself. You know, go out and get Chinese food, and go get a massage, and then come home and watch Star Wars. You know, go for a really long hike, and where, you know, probably you're gonna have the park to yourself mostly. Go out and enjoy nature, come home, create your own special meal, you know, take a bubble bath, like do something that's self-care for you. The whole goal of all of these options is to avoid being alone and getting into a emotional downward cycle of despair or loneliness. You know, combat those tapes in your head that say you're going to be alone, you're a loser, why don't you have anyone, you know, all of that stuff. Most people I have found are more than happy to host other people who may not have a place to go during the holidays. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're a loser. It doesn't mean that you're always going to be alone. All it means is that during this particular time, this is just how it is. That's it. You know, I've always found that bosses or coworkers have invited me over to things, and mostly, you know, I noticed that I would say maybe half of people don't have a family to spend their holiday with or their birthday, and you know, most people wouldn't want them around anyway. Sorry to say, right? So I hope that this has been helpful, and I would really love to hear your comments, and I'll post another video today where I'm going to talk about catastrophizing. So thank you so much, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.